Hello, hello, hello. Hello, welcome to the Real Talk Show. We are going to be on fire tonight. Yes, I'm excited. I'm super excited. For those that don't know me, I am Cynthia L. Robinson. I'm your host for the show. Meet us here every Saturday. We come here every Saturday and we have the Real Talk Show. We love showcasing faith-based entrepreneurs. We love showcasing authors, and we love hearing their testimonies, their journeys that led them to that place of them birthing out, because God is such a good God, birthing out the things that God has for them, birthing out their purpose, Father. So tonight we have an amazing guest. If you have not done so already, do me a favor and make sure you invite someone to be a part of the show. Subscribe to the channel, to the Plans of the Righteous channel, so that you can be alerted for future shows. We are super excited for tonight. And this month, for those who don't know, this month is National Women's Day, Women's Month. So we are celebrating all of our women this month. And we have had some amazing guest speakers that came in and just really poured into you guys. And so I'm going to bring her from behind the curtain. Sandra, come on in. Hello. How are you? Thank you for joining the show tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Listen, I'm super hyped about tonight.
So am I.
I'm super hyped. I'm super hyped. I've been just waiting patiently, counting down the time. I'm like, okay, God. Because when we had that conversation on the discovery call, we just really connected. And I'm telling you, God is such an awesome God. So do me a favor, take a few minutes and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am Sandra Cius, and I'm super excited to be here today to tell my story and encourage as much women as I can on this call.
Okay. Yes, that's what we're gonna do tonight. Sandra, this is a amazing month. I mean, there's so many different things that's going on this month that we got the National Women's Month, and we just love it on you for you being our speaker for tonight, for you being able to pour into the people, because you have such a profound testimony. And when I say I'm hyped, listen, from your book title and all of that, we're gonna get there. We're not gonna jump ahead. We're gonna take our time, because she got some stuff, and I'm excited. So do me a favor. Okay, just introduce yourself and tell us about Sandra, and we're gonna just move forward with bringing forth all the stuff that you're doing, your life, your journey, your mindset, all of that good stuff.
As I stated before, Sandra Cius. I am the author, self-published author of Married to My Enemy, my first book. Super excited to be here.
Okay, the first of many. So, yes. So tell me, we're gonna go ahead and hop in here. What was it that inspired you to share your journey, share your testimony? What was the defining moment that you was like, I gotta just tell this story?
I mean, there were so many layers to this. So when I first initially started writing, I used it as a coping mechanism. Once I realized that my ex was really pulling on and engaging to go back and forth and argue and so on and so forth, and I didn't want to do that anymore, I kind of put it all on paper. And my friends and family, they would talk to me and they would say, you definitely need to put this in a book. And I was kind of like, no, because, it's messy and I don't want to put my business out there. So I really was kind of not really encouraged to do so at that point. But things started to get really, really, really gruesome and really toxic and what have you. But in the midst of it, I started to see the light. And as things went on, I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm going through this not just for me, and especially how I'm moving forward in the healing process and getting myself back together. I feel like I can help somebody, and I felt like my test will be a testimony for someone, to help them move forward. And that's how it all started. And actually, as things were so chaotic, um, it was like women coming towards me asking me for advice and wanting me to talk to them about certain things. And I was like, you know what, I'll put this in a book. And then that's where it went off from there.
All right. All right. So listen, because everybody don't know your journey. So let's share a little bit about your journey, so that everybody can connect. Once they connect, then they'll understand the title of your book. So why don't you share a little bit of your testimony that led you to the title?
Well, I was married to my ex-husband. We were married for about 8 years. We were together for about 10 years. We have 3 children. And after the 7th year, that's when things started to kind of seem insane. Like it just wasn't, things weren't adding up. And actually during Hurricane Irma, when Hurricane Irma came and was blowing everybody's house up and the wind and the rain and nobody had power, in the midst of that, the veil was removed to what was truly going on in my marriage. And then in the midst of me finding out, the affair that he was having with a childhood friend of mine, I was getting hit by, train after train after train. And that's what it felt like. Because in the midst of my marriage, dissolving, friendships also were being dissolved at the same time.
So how were you able to digest that in the moment? Like, I'm sure that we're going to have people that's going to encounter or have encountered these same things, and most people think that we're supposed to just jump up and we're supposed to fight. Or what was your mechanism or your mindset to deal with, especially when you found out that you knew who he was involved with? What was the point that you was able to kind of work through that?
Well, there was multiple layers to this. It took a while. And the reason why it was so, how do I say it without, it was kind of chaotic because everyone in the background knew what was going on. And I was kind of like the last person to find out. So when, at the time I had a friend of mine that knew of what was going on, and she was probing me. She was saying, you need to ask him, what's going on. You need to get it from him. And then one day I just said, you know what? I knew something was wrong because my stomach was going all over the place. I had stopped eating completely. And then like bits and pieces, like I just couldn't put the puzzles together. So I got into the mode, like, I want to know. So as I was starting to research and look at things and uncover things, I finally said, you know what? I want to know. So I kind of bombarded him and kind of asked him what was going on. And at that day, he kind of exploded and said everything. Not everything, but a little bit of everything. And from that moment, that day, I will never forget. It kind of felt like, someone took my heart and kind of threw it on the floor, and I just went flesh. And at that moment, my mom had passed away when I was young, and all I could do think about was, God, I wish my mom was here because I don't know who else to talk to. And luckily, one of my sisters came by, and she came and checked up on me and what have you. And I called another family member, and I was like, listen, I need to go somewhere where I can speak to God because I need answers now. I am demanding answers now, and I can't do it in this house. And he invited me over. I went into his guest room and I just purged. I purged, I cried, I yelled, I cussed at God, I screamed, I did everything you can imagine all in that room. And then I just said, you know what, I'm not leaving here until I get answers as to what this is and where do I go from here.
Okay. Now, that's something that's real, because when you're going through situations, when you're dealing with those different situations where things are just coming at you from all different angles, thank God that you have a relationship with God for you to be able to know that that was your go-to, because most people don't.
Even in that moment, I even ran into my pastor at the time. I had to talk to her, and what she was saying, it just wasn't clicking. I had a church acquaintance at that time that I spoke to. It wasn't making any sense coming out of her mouth either. So that's when I started to get angry. I was like, obviously, God, you're the one with the answer. So I need to know now.
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of went from there. Things started to unravel. And the one prayer that I could remember that I asked, I was like, God, I need to see it. Show me what it is that everyone else sees, because I can't see it. And then show me who is here that shouldn't be here. And just like that, people started to fall off like flies. But the reason why they were falling off like flies came first, and then they just started to fall away. And even in that moment, I felt like it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders, and I knew that I was going to be okay, even though I was literally in so much pain. Like I was dealing with a lot at that time, but I kept feeling like this is just temporary. And I kept saying that. Now, I will say, even in the midst of seeing everything, hearing everything, him and I left the main room and moved into the guest room. And even in that moment, I felt like I needed to disconnect because I knew that something big was going to happen. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was something big. And what people don't really talk about is the in and out. Because even in that, my flesh wanted our marriage to work. There was moments where I wanted it to just be, okay, we got this. This happened, but let's figure this out.
Right. Yeah.
But even with that, God had to show me, I'm letting you know that this ain't it. Like, I'm showing it to you and I'm telling you that this is not it. So once I realized that I was the only person, people will talk and say, yes, let's work this thing out, but their movements would be different. So when I finally realized he wanted me to continue on saying, let's work this thing out, but his movements never changed. And that's when I made the decision, like, okay, this is over with. I'm not going to do the back and forth. I'm going to put my plan together to see how I can get up out of here. Because even with the infidelity, there was also domestic violence involved as well. So I was, in fear of what would the backlash be when I get up and leave with the children. So I had to figure out what that looks like, making calls and so on and so forth. Then it was a huge incident that happened between my child and the father. And that was basically my way out. It was like God was saying, I don't know what else you want me to do to show you that this you need to go. So it was kind of like that incident happened. And then next thing you know, doors just started to open up. The whole thing was exposed. I never told my family what was going on. The incident went down and that kind of exposed everything, even for my family. And then they just kind of came in and gave me the support that I needed at that moment.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit, because you guys were married for You
About
said
8.
about 8 years.
Mhm.
In before getting married, because we literally just had a conversation in one of our groups about praying for your spouse.
Mhm.
And what happens is so often when we're in a relationship,
Mhm.
we think that that's where God is directing us.
Mhm.
So at any point, can you say that you had that conversation with God before you got married? Or, yeah, before you got married?
No.
No. So, and prior to that, would you say that you had did God give you any signs that maybe that was not where he really wanted you to go before
Yes.
you got married? And
Yes.
so, okay, so this is real talk, y'all. This is real talk, y'all. If you have questions, you put your questions in the chat because, we as women, God can give us signs, but we
Mhm.
act off our emotions and we will draw near to that person to try. We can fix it. Oh, I can
Mhm.
fix it. He'll change. Or she, because it can go either way.
Right.
Listen, it can go either way. It can go male or female or vice versa. It can go either way. So
Absolutely.
can you share, looking back now, looking at prior to you saying I do, if
Mhm.
you had signs that said don't?
Yes. Absolutely. And the crazy, our love story. My ex chased me for about 3 years. I ignored him. I didn't pay any attention. I had no interest in him because I knew his story. I knew the women from the past. I knew all the things that he was involved in, and I just was not interested. And even in that moment, we would talk, we would flirt or whatever, but deep, I already knew that I wasn't into him that way.
Mm-hmm.
But when we did get together, it was in a moment where I was in a very, very how should I say? I was dealing with a breakup with someone else at that time that I was with for quite some time, and it was kind of like he knew that I was basically in my feelings, and
Uh-huh.
in that moment, I kind of released, like the wall went down, and we started hanging out from there. But I talk about it in my book about accountability because even though what I went through in my marriage, even when we were together, I had to come back to self to say, okay, well, Sandra, why were you even in that situation? Why were you in that situation for so long? Now you got to deal with the issues that you had prior to him and the issues that were highlighted while you were with him. Because it's not just him. You get what I'm saying? He's
Right.
being himself. So now we got to deal with you. And I took a lot of time with figuring out those things.
Uh-huh.
And that's where therapy came in and kind of highlighted, was able to put labels on all the issues that I was dealing with that I didn't really understand and know that I was dealing with them. When we were together, there was a slight physical altercation that we had, and in that moment, that should have been my exit. And
Okay.
I allowed it with my insecurities, with all the other issues, my abandonment issues that I had, and my eagerness to have my own family. And I lost my mom at 2, and I lost my father at 5. And when we
Mm.
got together, it felt like everything was kind of moving where it was supposed to be. You know, I was pregnant with my first son, and he proposed to me, and things were just kind of moving in that direction. So I was like, oh, well, this is what God was saying. Because like, this is what it was
Yes.
supposed to be. So I didn't really see it as this is not who I'm supposed to be with, because things were kind
Right.
of moving in that direction. But I was ignoring a lot of those signs that were kind of like, wait a minute. You get what I'm saying? No,
Yeah.
this is who I'm supposed to be with. And so, like I stated in the book, when I went into the moments of holding myself accountable for putting myself in that situation for so long, one, and two, dealing with those insecurities, the abandonment issues, and so on and so forth. I didn't know what that was then. You know, I know what it is now, but then I didn't know what that was.
And you know, it's so true, because what happens in a lot of our lives is we go through childhood trauma, childhood hurt, abandonment from our fathers not being in our lives, our mothers not being in our lives. There's so many different equations to it. You being bullied at school, just different things, and those things affect your self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And we grow up thinking that it's okay, we're going to fix it, and that what goes on in the house stays in the house, or I'll get through it.
Right.
Recently, we had on the show a therapist. We had a therapist on a few weeks ago, and we talked about that childhood hurt. We talked about those belief systems that hinder us and cause us to make wrong decisions. And even through the process of, in our households, we were brought up thinking that we don't have to go and get counseling. Like, we don't need to go to a counselor. We don't need to go to a therapist. Did you ever feel like you didn't need to go to a therapist? Like, I got this, I can do this on my own. And did you get to that point where you like, I cannot do this on my own because it's affecting me and what I'm showing to my kids?
Yes. There was like I said, that big incident that happened that kind of opened the door for me to pack me and the kids up and go. The first thing I said to the state officials was, I need counseling. And not just for me, but also for the children. Right. I even advocated for him to get counseling because I knew that there were some major issues that needed to be addressed, and it's just not, we can't do it on our own. Mm-hmm. I do recall a time where I didn't think that therapy would work, and that was never a thought, because like you said, we as Black women, we hear that a lot. Like, no, what happens here stays here. No, nobody needs to know what's going on in the household, and so on and so forth. But once I realized, okay, this is bigger than me. Mm-hmm. There has to be a way to deal with these issues, because what I realized is, because I didn't deal with my issues from childhood of me, losing my parents, finding out that I was actually angry at my parents because they were gone, all these things, and so on and so forth. I was like, I need to figure out a way to help my kids now, because they were exposed to a lot. Right. My children were exposed to a lot, and I needed to be the one in my generation and my family to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and put in for them to get the counseling that they need, because this is too much, because of all the things that we were going through in the moment. Not only, the parents splitting, but the things that happened in between, it was just too severe. And my children are fine. Thank God they are fine. But I can still see there are some things that are coming up from the midst of, now we're co-parenting. So to deal with the whole co-parenting parts of it. But therapy was a huge thing, not only just for me, but also for the children. And I thank God that I was able to advocate for them to do that, and have the proper resources for us to get the help that we needed to help us with it.
Exactly. And for us, what would your suggestion be for somebody that's going through a similar situation, that's going through a relationship? It doesn't have to be a marriage, because you know what? Sometimes what happens is people aren't married and they go through these situations. So for somebody to go through a situation similar to this, what would you say to them as a way to help them to get out, or to realize that they don't have to stay in that situation and be a statistic? Because I'm sure at some point, especially with the domestic violence part, you know, people are in situations and they'll say, oh, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. Oh, he'll never do that to me. Oh, just this one time. Oh, he won't hit me again. Or he'll come to you and say, I won't do it again.
You literally
and again happens.
the layer of what my story is. Because the first time there was an incident of him physically harming me, that we weren't married then. And then we had a discussion. I even included family. I don't think I included family at that time, but we had a discussion and he stated, you'll never do it again. And then the first time when we were married, it happened. That's when I had to include family. I was like, this is what happened. I'm not dealing with this. And, you know, and so on and so forth. And the whole thing, you know, I'll get help and all this other stuff and we're going to be all right. And the domestic violence in my story wasn't like a constant thing. It was the first time 2015, the second time was 2017, and then 2016, 2017. They were kind of separated. It wasn't, but even in the midst of that, the verbal, the emotional abuse was in the midst of it as well. You get what I'm saying? But what I will say is plan. And what I mean by that is get to a space where you're mentally ready to plan. Kind of purge out your feelings. I use writing as my coping mechanism so that I can get all the emotions out where I'm not, you know, where someone had control of my emotions to a certain extent. And finding that coping mechanism. Like I said, mine was writing. And then I sat down and I planned it out. I contacted Women in Distress to help me get out of the situation that we were in where my child was involved, and connecting with community. I connected with my church at the time as well to kind of guide me in ways to get me in a space, and my family. Although my mom and my father are deceased, I have a big family. My siblings were, you know, eventually entered in, and I allowed them to know what was going on. And they had my back all 100%, whatever I needed for me and the children. For the women who don't have kids, who don't have family and don't know who to turn to, and they're in a space where it's just them. Community involvement is super important. Finding those organizations that are there to help women get out of these situations, because they're there. We just need to pick up the phone and call and figure out where to go next. But getting into that safe space is super important, because in my planning, that was my fear. I kept thinking, okay, what will be the backlash? My ex at the time had a lot of law enforcement connections. And I was even afraid to even talk to law enforcement at a point in time because I felt like he sent them to me. You get what I'm saying? So I had to deal with the mental play that was going on in my head, because I literally was in fear at first. And once I got into a safe space and connecting with people in the community, like Women in Distress, those organizations, and they allow me to understand, like, you're going to be fine. And, you know, we're here. Every situation that is in between, like the divorce, they gave me counsel for that. We were living in a home that we didn't own, but we were renting, and my name was on that lease. After I had to put a restraining order on him, they had a counsel for that. They had a counsel to help me get my name off that lease. So they have the resources there. You just have to reach out to them and know that you're in that space to reach out to them. Because what I found in the midst of that, a lot of these organizations are skeptical of women that said they want to leave from these abusive marriages or relationships, because women tend to go back. And I understand why they do. I didn't go back, and I thank God that, and I would celebrate the months that I went by where I did not go back. But I understand why, because it can be difficult. It can be very, very difficult. as far as housing, making sure you have childcare and all these other things so you can find the right job, because you're coming from a two income to now one income. And then
Right.
especially when you have multiple children, like I did, it was very, very tough because I was the only one financially caring for me and the three children.
And the three kids.
And
I'm gonna
some of these resources they're there, but it's a little bit tough. You got to work on it and not give up when that door closes or that doesn't fit the situation that you're in. You kind of got to do the legwork and understand that not giving up and not going back, that going back is not an option. If you're telling yourself that constantly and preparing yourself to keep pushing and motivate yourself to keep pushing, you get to a space where you're in a safe space and you're
Yes.
out of that situation.
And I'm going to just share this part because I actually retired from a sheriff's agency. And statistic wise, when law enforcement reports to domestic violence cases, guess what usually happens? Whoever they're coming to help usually turns on them and jump on them. Or they turn and they don't want to press charges. So I'm not saying that it's right. And I'm not saying, what I am saying is that statistic wise, when law enforcement reports to those situations, and that's probably the reason why when you actually reach out to someone, an agency, they're so used to the people, not everybody, going back or canceling the restraining order. Those are situations that actually happen the majority of the time. I would say 7 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, you would have situations that would happen like that. Right. And they actually code that. When we used to send deputies out, we would send them out as a 2-unit person because of those situations. You go to help the one person that's calling for help, and then that person winds up saying, "Oh no, don't take him," and they wind up having to arrest both people because now both of them have gone to the left, and it's because the majority of the time is, okay, I need your help, but I don't want to take him. I don't want you to take him away because I still love him.
Yeah.
It's the mindset of the whole process. It's the mindset. Help me, get him off of me, but I don't want you to take him away. I still love him. So did you have that? You had that feeling? Did you ever experience that feeling or in a situation similar to that?
No. The last physical altercation we had, that was the first time I called the police. The last physical altercation, because I was just, at this point, I was fed up. My situation was somewhat, I wouldn't say unique, but my ex really tried to paint this situation as if I was insane. Like, I'm crazy madly in love with him, that I would, do some crazy stuff to keep him. And in actuality, and that was a story that was spinned out. And that also was the reason why I also wrote the book, so I can say my side of the story. Yes. But I wasn't going to give it out for free. You was going to have to pay that on Amazon. So
exactly.
Anywho, but that's how he was spinning his story. I found out why he was spinning it that way, because he already moved off from my childhood friend to some other person that he was dealing with as well. So you know, when you tell the story, like, yeah, she's crazy, but I want to be there for my kids type of situation, because it's now been a year at that point where we were sleeping in separate rooms. It was a whole year that we were sleeping in separate rooms. But again, it was kind of like a hot and cold thing. Like he would try to come and see, how mad am I? Am I talking to him today? He would make noise to see if I would give him attention. I think he realized that I was already cut out. Mentally, I was out, you know, and I was focusing more on building myself up. At that time, I think prior to this whole thing exploding, I was 244 pounds. And at the end of it, I lost about 78 pounds in like 6 months. And
wow.
Once I lost all the weight and I realized, okay, the way I lost it, it was through stress. So now I need to get myself healthy. I focused on getting myself healthy. I was walking every night. I was reading. I was going to church basically almost every night. I was doing whatever I needed to do to build myself up, because I knew that I wasn't going to be in this situation anymore. Like this was a temporary thing. So when I called the police and they came in, it was to the point where he spun his own story, tried to make it seem like I attacked him and so on and so forth. And it was in that moment I realized, I was like, this man is literally trying to get me arrested. As if I started this whole situation. And I was like, Sandra, you have 3 children. You need to gather yourself now. Tell them the story. Don't over escalate the thing. Don't be all dramatic. Be very straightforward. Say exactly what's going on. And sure enough, the police were saying, you know, he has to leave for now, and mom, whatever you got going on, you do that, and y'all separate for the day, and so on and so forth. And the crazy thing about it is, it was my baby girl's birthday. We had people coming out to Chuck E. Cheese to celebrate her. So I was like, you know, Sandra, you're gonna put your big girl pants on. You're gonna put that smile on. You're gonna make sure baby girl is all right, and that is that.
Amen.
I spoke to myself a lot because I needed that encouragement. Because of all that I was dealing with the family and the so-called family and friends that I had that kind of disappeared, I didn't trust to talk to anybody. All I had was me and God. Like that was it. That was it. I didn't have that moment where, you know, oh no, I don't want you to take it. What I didn't want my kids to see their father in handcuffs. That was one of my, like, that was the key thing. I was like, I don't want them to see that. Right. Even though they saw so much that children their age probably have not seen nor heard. You know, some of kids their age, but I just didn't want them to have that memory. You know, so that's why, you know, I gathered myself and I explained what was happening. And I thank God that one of the police officers I actually knew. So he kind of was like, okay, well, if there's no weapons in the house, if there is, we're going to take them. Y'all kind of separate from there. And, you know, this normally don't happen. We normally take someone. And it's true. Right. We're not going to do that right now, as long as y'all kind of separate and go from there. But I never had that moment, because I was like, no, you're not going to paint me as the aggressor, because I wasn't. You know, I'm 5'7". At that time, I think I was 107 something pounds, and he's 6'4", over 200 pounds. I was like, I'm not the aggressor. And I wasn't going to allow him to paint me as being that person, because I know who I am and I know what I was dealing with. Yes. I never had that feeling. I knew that I needed to be out regardless. I was done. When I realized I lost respect for him, not only as a man, but as a father, I had no respect for him. So if they took him out, I would have spoke to the kids, to the officers, let me bring the children in, put them somewhere where they're not seeing that. But I wasn't gonna, I was done at that moment.
Okay, so we got a few comments that I think it's Nana or Nene. You are so strong. We have the change after 40 that says you're so strong. And then we have SD Williams, the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Praise God for his faithfulness. We miss the signs before love is blind. And your story will save someone. It came from the change after 40. And they're absolutely right. They're absolutely right that your story is a testimony. And I'm thankful that you said yes, that you came on the show, because one of the things is, besides it being National Women's Month, what else is it this month? We just talked about it. Domestic violence we was talking about. No, you were saying that you wanted to make sure we talked about that, because this is the National Women's Month, and we want to make sure that we're feeding into letting people know that they don't have to stay in those situations. They can come out, and it's a matter of your mindset and also your support system. So thank God that you made it out of the situation. Thank God your kids are good. So tell us, what was the moment that you said that title? How did you come up with that title? That title of that book is everything. Listen, that title of that book is everything, y'all.
Honestly, the title came because I had a journal entry where I was talking about what was happening. It felt like every single day there was something that was planned to get me into a frenzy. And there was a moment where it kind of came out that was the plan, to kind of label me as this psycho, crazy, in love type of thing. And I was just like, and it felt like, and it wasn't just him. It was him. I had a best friend, the best friend's sister. Like the friends that were attached to this, I've known them since I was young. I've known them longer than I knew my husband. And I will say, to let go of those friendships, or the hurt, not to let go, but the hurt of the issues that I went through in those friendships throughout this whole ordeal, that took longer to deal with in therapy than the breakup with my husband.
Because those were relationships that you actually, I mean, your relationship with your husband, your ex-husband was okay, right. Yes. However, the relationship with those friends is on a different level, because you're looking at them as somebody that I can go to. It's somebody that is my support system, somebody that's supposed to have my back regardless when I'm going through. So
the crazy thing about that was he preyed on that. Because the thing was, I'm a parentless child. This is how I thought his mindset was. She's a parentless child. I ain't got to worry about her daddy coming to bust through the door to come for me. And it was in moments of him physically hitting me and saying things of that nature. Call your daddy. There ain't nobody going to come for you, and da da da. He would taunt me because he felt like I was by myself, that nobody was going to come save me, that I only had him. And he made sure I felt that way, because I was too embarrassed to go to my family. And it wasn't just embarrassment. It was really because I didn't want to bring that burden on them. Like, God forbid, if something were to happen, I wouldn't know how to deal with that if my family got involved. And he knew that. You're going to say he played on that. And the same, because those friendships weren't obviously not true friendships, he played on that too. And he used that as well, reminding me, oh, this your so-called little sister, but look, I've recorded a conversation between her and I, and she's mocking you. You were crying and she mocking you. Look, this and that. And he would keep reminding me about that. And my so-called best friend at the time, who is now his best friend, she he's like, look, nobody want to be your friend. They all about my, and then while those interactions were happening, I would sit back and I'm like, you a man. Like, how are you in the midst of all of this with women? Why are you so comfortable with doing this with amongst women? So it was things like that. I had to go from that moment of hurt wife, marriage over, embarrassment. Shame. I got out of that situation pretty quickly. Because when I started to see his mannerisms, how he operated, how he communicated with these so-called friends, how he would use these, I was like, I don't want to be with you. I don't like this. I don't like you. I don't like how, this is not who I consider to be my man, someone to protect me. You are not protecting me. So I felt like it was a moment where he was sitting at a table and having a conference with these women, and they would just give him intel or so-called intel, and he would try to use that stuff against me. And then certain moments were happening, things would go on, certain things were said, and I'm just like, I really feel like this is my enemy. Like, am I married to my enemy? And I wrote it in my journal. And when this book was not actually be called The Journey to My Purpose. I thought that was going to be the title, but it just didn't click. So I kind of went back to reading my journals. And I do that a lot, even to this day, just to see my growth, or what have you. And I read that particular journal prompt, and I'm like, ooh, that's a little spicy. But it's true, because I kind of downplayed a lot of my journal entries in the book because it was a whole lot more of what I actually put in the book. I had a coach that helped me put this book together, and she's like, girl, this too much. Like,
bring it back a little bit. Bring it back a little bit, right?
You might want to do a part 2 where you can give the readers a blood, raw, uncut version of the journal. But you can't, you're going to lose. That's not what we're going to do. So, and then I think I was talking to some family members, and I'm like, I think I'm going to name my book Married to My Enemy. And they was like, dang, that sounds good. And I did some research and saw other books of it in that nature. And I'm like, you know what? This is the name of my book. And I'm not going back from it. And then I added,
your cover is everything. Okay. When I tell you she did it, y'all. That book, I can't wait to get my copy because it's everything. And you did an amazing job.
When I was putting the blueprint together, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not just going to spill tea, and I don't want people to think that that's what the book is. This is a story based off of my perspective. I give pointers of what I did to get myself out of the situation, a guide, a how to, to get people to, yes, I know how you feel. Yes, I was there, but guess what? You can get up out of there. So that was my goal. I didn't want it to be, girl, I'm going to spill the tea and put it on a book and sell it. It was, I'm going to give you a little bit of the tea, but I'm going to let you know what I learned from what was going on. As I was learning, I was writing about it, and I want you to, I love
it. I love it. So listen, share with us, what's your next journey, as far as the book? Because listen, you have a lot to help others. So how can you bring this book into where you're impacting others besides the book? What's the next steps for you?
Honestly, after I wrote the book and talking to some people, and they realized that, like, you do have a voice, and you got this. You can actually do this. I love to hear you speak. I love to hear your story. So I'm playing with the whole mentor coaching thing to figure out where I fit in on that. That will be my next journey, coaching or mentoring.
Awesome. I just dropped the link to your book in the chat. So all you guys have to do, if you click on the link, also you see her contact information scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Because yeah, I'm telling you, Sandra I love the fact that even though you went through these things, your journey was complete trauma, but you didn't allow that trauma to hold you back and keep you held in that shell. I feel like you just busted out of that shell and you just blossomed and you just blooming and birthing and all of that. So I commend you because that's amazing. It's such an amazing testimony. It's such an amazing journey. So what fruit can you drop for the people if they have something that they're holding inside? It doesn't matter if it's something dealing with a relationship. If they have something that they're holding inside that they want to birth out and share with the world, what is something that you would tell them to do?
Do it.
Just do it.
I got to a point where I didn't care. After I've gotten in the healing process of dealing with building myself back up, getting up my confidence, or what have you, I got to a space where I didn't care what people thought anymore. Mm-hmm. I did what made me happy for me. Not really caring what my neighbors think, what they thought, what they see, what they don't see. I didn't care anymore. So once I get into a space where you build yourself up, loving on yourself, caring for yourself, doing the research on whatever it is that you have, that you want to do, that's viewing, because this thing was festering for quite some time. Even speaking about, my parents, like I always wanted to talk to people that are adults now, but didn't have any parents. Like their parents were out of their lives and they basically feel like they raised themselves. So writing about that. This thing was festive. I just didn't know where, what, and how. And I was just kind of like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Like, I don't have, all these degrees, and my English teacher and my mentor would tell you my grammar sucks. I had no kind of confidence when it came to putting words on paper, even speaking. I had all these issues and insecurities that I was like, nah, nobody's gonna want to listen to me. And I'm a little ratchet sometimes, a little, bougie ratchet, little ghetto. Or what have you. But then I got to the moment I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just do it. Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. That's it. Just do it.
Yep. Yep.
Just do it. Especially, so at this particular point, would you say that you're walking in your purpose?
You're really proud of it. Yes. And the reason being that I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing is because it doesn't feel like I'm forcing myself. This doesn't feel like, oh, this is too much or what have you. I have so many things viewing in my mind as for how I can take this thing off with my book, and also my projects that I have just sitting and waiting or what have you. It feels good. And even when I talk to people, I get calls from people from all over just randomly speaking to me and asking me questions who don't know me from a panic, at all. And it just feels effortless. Like the things that come out of my mouth, I'm like, wait a minute, that's a word for me. But I think I need to tell you too, but that's a word for me. And I'm just absorbing this. and I've always wanted to help people. I just didn't know how I would be doing it, but that was always a thing for me. I always knew that that would be it, because I'm a naturally a giver. And even like you stated, through the trauma and all the things that I've been through, from childhood until now, I've always saw the brighter side of it. Even though I didn't want to, I always saw the brighter side of it, because I always knew this is only temporary. This next journey, as far as, from my ex and I, now it's the co-parenting, figuring out that whole thing. And it's definitely been a journey. Which I'm planning on writing a book about that too, but it's definitely been a journey. But even understanding that and seeing the dynamics of that and seeing my growth within that, how I have my moments, because I'm still flesh. Okay.
Yes.
I have a little petty moments sometimes. I call some of my sisters and vent here and there sometimes. But just seeing my growth, that despite of all that I've been through, I'm still here trucking, loving on my children, laughing, being myself, and unapologetically being myself. I just know that this is where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing, because it feels right.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels right.
And okay, so we have Wendy that says you are a testimony. Thank you, Wendy. So I'm just we're gonna wind up closing out real soon. But at what point will you have, because we should always have these conversations with our kids, because our kids are growing up, and it's in an evolving world, it's in a changing world. And at some point, a conversation should be had with the kids, not necessarily to bash dad, but to let them know that these are the things that you should look for in a relationship that will either be acceptable or unacceptable behavior. So at what point will you, if you haven't already, have that conversation with the kids to say what's acceptable and what's unacceptable behavior? Because they're going to grow up, and you don't want them to go through what you went through.
No. And I'll start from here. My mother, I didn't know that she was dealing with something similar as what I was dealing with. That's when I found, after this whole thing happened and I left my husband, I started to dig deep within myself and say, okay, I got to figure out where this is coming from. What's the root of this? And once I started to ask questions about my mother and my father's relationship, I realized that she was somewhat in a similar situation as well. I had no idea about that. And then when I started to dig, and I was like, okay, this is a generational thing. I'm cutting this thing off now. This is not going to be where I'm going back because that's my husband and the kids. No, I'm cutting this off right now, because I have 2 boys and a girl. Okay. And like I stated before, my children saw a lot. So I couldn't lie to them. I couldn't say, oh, no, dad didn't really hit me. That's not what happened. They saw that. So I prayed first as far as how to approach them. Even when I packed up and took them out and we moved off, I had a discussion. I'm like, mommy's taking us to a safe place. Daddy will not be coming with us. It's us, mommy taking them. And from there, as time went on, because there were some adjustment issues and them trying to figure out, why are we in separate places and so on and so forth. I very lightly, I had that conversation with them to explain the whole situation. And as they're growing now, this has happened about 3-4 years ago, 3 years ago. even with the book, my oldest wants to read my book. My children are readers. They read all day, so they know I have a book. They saw the cover. They saw the title. They're fully aware of it. I told them no, they're not going to read it no time soon. I'll let them know when they can, or what have you. But I've had that discussion with them slowly. And if they ask me questions, I'll answer because I
Yeah.
can't hold that from them because of what they've been exposed to already.
Right.
I don't want them to resent me in any kind of way about this whole situation. So I answer. If they ask, I'll answer and answer it in a ways at their level of understanding, the best way I know how, so they understand.
Well, we give you your props. You are such a strong, strong, strong young lady. We are grateful for your safety. We're grateful for your mindset that you made the decision to get out of that situation safely. And we're grateful that God used you to write this book because your testimony is going to help someone. Your testimony is going to be a lifesaver for someone else. And I said lifesaver because so often we do see where domestic violence happens, and unfortunately, there's a loss of life. So we thank God that you made the decision to get out when you did, and that it wasn't a situation where there was a loss of life. So we're thankful and grateful to God for Him leading and guiding you and placing that hedge of protection around you and your kids. And we even want to pray for him that, that things will change for him, that he'll be, a changed person. For whatever the next journey is for him. So we want to just cover him as well. And we definitely want to cover the kids and your family. So with that being said, share with everybody how they can connect with you.
So I am on Instagram, Sandra Cius on Instagram. Facebook, Sandra Cius. Author Sandra Cius? Yes, on Facebook. Those are the two platforms I'm always on. They can connect with me on those two. Or my email, sandraciusauthor@gmail.com.
Awesome. So y'all definitely want to connect. And the book is available already on Amazon. All you got to do is click on the link. I got it in the chat already. So you guys just click on that link and order your copy. Okay? So we got to tell the people we got to go, Sandra. We gotta go. I know. See, I told you this was gonna be just good conversation. Before we go, do you have anything else, a nugget, anything else that you would like to share before you go?
I'll say love, whatever that means for you. I'm enjoying this single life because I am single. Okay, enjoying this life because I'm taking that time to love and learn who this girl is. I'm not Sandra prior to marriage. I'm not the Sandra that was married. This is a totally different Sandra. And I'm loving this person. Taking that time to get to know who you are, coming into self, grinding into yourself, and don't be so hard. Forgive yourself, love on yourself, connect with good energy, good people, with God. Those are all my nuggets that I deal with on a daily basis to keep me going. So that's my nugget.
Very good. So I'm just going to close this out. We're going to read a few of these messages because you're getting a whole bunch of love coming in. Wendy says, your testimony, you are a testimony. Then we have the Change After 40 that says, thank you for sharing your story. May God continue to bless you and your family. Then we have Mindy that says, this was such an amazing story. Your testimony will touch many. Come on now. Yes, yes, yes. Come on. And then we have Adeline. If I'm pronouncing your name wrong, please forgive me. I'm showing you a little love in advance. Y'all, I do mess up people's names, okay? I agree with you, Cynthia. The book will help a lot of people, especially women in similar situations. Praise God. Then we have Wendy that came back and said that book is fire. Yes. Thank you guys for these amazing comments that's coming in. Thank you for sharing some love. All Things Monica says, thank you for sharing your story. And then we have Nana that says amazing, and followed by our last one that says God, by Sharon. It says God can and will deliver us from anything. It takes his strength to help us to discover self-love. Thank you for sharing your story, Sandra. God bless you. I feel some deliverance and some healing coming on, y'all. Yes, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Thank you guys for joining us tonight for the Real Talk Show. You can meet us here every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Definitely you can connect with Sandra. Click on the link so that you can order her copy of her book. She would love it, love it, love it. Also, her information is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I love you guys. Definitely connect with us with the Plans of the Righteous. If you're not a part of our Facebook group, join us with the Plans of the Righteous Facebook group. We would love to have you. We are launching our flagship course, which is the P2S, Prepared to Succeed, which is a group coaching program for faith-based entrepreneurs. We enjoy helping people to start and stay in business and elevate their business to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're starting or if you're already in business. We can help you pivot your business so that you can now have it as a profitable business. And we just love you guys. If you haven't ordered your planner, make sure you visit me at www.plansoftherighteous.com and pre-order your planner, or you can join our academy at academy.plansoftherighteous.com. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and meet us here every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We love you guys. We have to go. Love you guys. Thanks for staying. And we will see you guys next Saturday. Tell the people good night, Sandra.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much for listening. It was a pleasure.
We love you guys. See you guys next week.